talking about The Boys, season 3.
Back in town.
Give me your quick feelings on the first 2 seasons of The Boys.
Yes, I think The Boys on Amazon Prime Video is very enjoyable because it's a not necessarily nuanced, but very obvious and enjoyable satire of superheroes and superhero culture, which is so dominating in today's pop culture landscape. And it's really fun to see all of that lampooned in such a manner that they do it on The Boys. I think The Boys also brings a lot of kind of modern, like societal comment into things. The comic adaptation was more reflective of the Bush years. The Boys on Amazon is obviously grounded in the Trump sensibilities of the world and just our modern times in general. So it does a really good job of bringing superhero comment, societal comment, and also really visceral R-rated action, more adult fare at the very least, right? So it's a really good job of world building, I have to say, but it makes you think, I think, a lot more than really any other superhero stuff does. So for that, I'm just willing to give it more rope when, it might spin its wheels here and there, just because it's at least trying to do something a bit different than everything else.
Yeah, I think it's a bit reductive to say it's like a grittier look at superhero culture. It definitely explores aspects of what it would be like to have superheroes in real life that I don't think many people actually consider when they put themselves into these Marvel or DC worlds. And DC is leaned more into the gritty aspect of the underbelly of those worlds. But I mean, the way that this explores sexuality within superheroes, the way it explores what their powers could do to just average people on the street, and the way that these powers would corrupt someone psychologically and impact someone psychologically are just really, really well done. And of course, you have some awesome performances led by Anthony Starr as Homelander, who is just as Homelander is just perfectly cast and so maniacal and so hateable, but also kind of entrancing. When he's on screen, he's just someone that you just can't take your eyes off of. Even when he's in the background, he's just always looming. And I think that's the thing the show has done so well in setting him up as a character is he just hangs over every aspect of this show. And so season 3 starts, and he's had a bit of a fall from grace. His relationship with Stormfront, obviously, who's outed as a Nazi,
literal Nazi from the 40s.
Nazi, yeah, is a huge hit to his
scores,
celebrity,
his ratings,
his celebrity scores. But it sets him up, like you talked about, that Trump real world based political atmosphere, to have this incredible turn in the second episode after Stormfront's suicide that I think sets up the true conflict for the rest of this season, where Homelander is just who has been kind of muzzled by having to, or this desire to be popular and to be liked and to be what he feels like he has to be as a celebrity, now just being like, fuck it, I'm just going to be who I am and people love it anyway, so I'm just going to be as the awful, shitty, superhuman I am. And that is just completely terrifying. And actually, as I talk about it, you even get a little sense of anxiety, because there's so many characters on this show that you like and you want to see succeed, and you're really sucked into the story, and it just feels like I have no idea where this is going to go this season. And so I'm all in on season 3 of The Boys. What did you think of these first 3 episodes?
Yeah, I think, as you said, that ending episode 2 monologue from Homelander, where, and it's an epiphany for his character, as you said, he realizes that he can just play into the rhetoric and the dog whistles that he would like to do anyway, and find his audience playing to his base. They literally say it from Advot. It's scary to see that kind of representation of society and celebrity on the show, but it also makes so much sense for where we've been with this character to this point, and the really frustrating but believable and sensical portrayal of like corporatism in terms of how Vought operates and what make drives their decisions. It all is so familiar and makes so much sense, but like I think it just makes the world feel so much more real.
Yeah.
Like you said, the show in season one had a great hook where like, what if the Flash ran through someone and they fucking splattered and died? It's like
Hmm.
something you think about like that's like wow, and like I think we're so much more past that, even if we're not leaving all that behind either. Where because we're talking about like top level, like more societal things and representing real world phenomenon via the boys.
Hmm.
The fact that it's also like satirizing superhero culture is like so much besides the point now, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm very much looking forward to seeing the rest of the season. I think the question, or I guess the perhaps lack of true conflict that I brought up when we talked about season two is that once like Homelander goes like full villain, full off tilt, the show has to move into its end game. So in that regard, I wonder how much like true stakes we will have with the boys until we get to that point because they can't kill Homelander until they're ending the show, you know?
Hmm.
So how much more do we have of the boys themselves staying out of Homelander's grasp and going back and forth? I'd like that they at least had Butcher and Homelander meet in this premiere, like face to face, sit down at the table, and that's when was it Homelander gives Butcher the Temp V files, the three of them, and it's like they at least put it out in the open that like Homelander at any moment could just slaughter everyone, and he
Hmm.
at least is aware that he doesn't want to do that at this time. But that being said, like what else can we see like happen from a plot perspective that'll feel meaningful? Like I think Huey does a good job too of saying like everything feels hopeless and I can't do it the right way. Like it's all rigged. This senator I've been working for turns out she's in on it too and is a soup and connected to the vault, blah blah blah.
Hmm.
So we have to go back to what we were doing. It's like, okay, they're going to go back to what they were doing in season one, but we have no reason to expect it to be any more successful because the boys is a successful show and thus Homelander's going to keep being Homelander, right?
Yeah.
So that's my one kind of hang up that's like in the back of my head. But I also don't mind it that much because it's just such a fun world to be in. And Homelander really just makes some real anxious feelings in you when you watch him because it's just such a fully realized villain, but also
Yeah.
multifaceted.
Yeah. So my one thought would be that if they wanted to go the route of killing Homelander, the way that they could keep this show going would be kind of setting him up as like the Trump character who is going to like awaken this like these bad actors throughout the country, and then have
Right.
it kind of like these other people like take up this persona and like how they're going to try to like combat that. They would really be leaning into like current political discourse,
Right.
which I don't know if the show wants to fully go there, but they did introduce Nazi idealism into like the you know a
Right.
person who embodies the United States in the show. So it's
Right.
it's
I mean,
not shying away from current
there's
political
obvious
discourse.
Charlottesville iconography with the Stormfront
Yes.
supporters that we see in season three on like video footage. So they don't really run away from anything, and they don't really care if the parallels are super obvious either, because as long as it I think makes sense for the world building in the show, then it's all good.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. What does Homelander running off to chill in Florida look like though on the
Hmm.
show? Like what is that actually? I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah. I think it would. I think it would have to be like Homelander is whenever this weapon that they're finding actually works on him, and that he still is like a figure, but not as powerful in some way.
Mm,
I just
nerf
don't
him.
know what's going to come, but I am really fascinated to see the flashbacks. We see a flashback to Mallory there. What's her
Yeah,
name?
Nicaragua, like
Yeah,
Contra stuff. I think it was.
and you get young Vought there, Edgar from Vought, who's overseeing these initial like
Mm,
soups in the army,
yes,
and just
payback.
like the debacle that was so well done and gruesome, which I think the show really does a good job of showing the potential gruesome side of this world as sort of reality. And I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing a little bit more from that. I think the Soldier Boy, just
Yes.
which also just makes me laugh every time they talk about it because it's hard to not just think of Soldier Boy.
Yeah. Great that.
You. But I think that's really fascinating and like an interesting aspect to the show is looking backwards a little bit more. So I'm hoping to get something out of that, and I also think they do a really good job of setting up the position that Starlight is in.
Yeah.
I really feel for her, and I think um, Erin Moriarty does a really great job
Yeah.
playing her, and I'm very fascinated to see where this like on-screen romance that she's leaning into at the end of episode 3 is going to go with Homelander. It
Mm.
feels like a like really tiptoeing a fine line. I'm very worried for her at this point.
Yeah, I agree, and I think down the line too, they're doing a good job of logically kind of setting up the ticking time bomb that is Homelander's son via
Yeah.
Butcher's wife. Uh, wouldn't be shocked to see him kind of become like an Anakin Skywalker falls to Darth Vader type thing. Kylo Ren, like maybe that is where we go, where he briefly breaks like super bad and becomes an antagonist.
Hmm.
Not sure. I really enjoy Victoria Newman so far, who we got a bit in season 2, as she's the congresswoman who's in on it with Vought. Uh,
Yeah.
the whole Vought,
Nadia.
like, yeah, adopting stuff from Super Soup's kids. Another awesome, I think, world building moment that makes sense for the boys. What if there were superpowered kids that killed their parents before they had any control? What
Hmm.
happens to them? It's like, wow, yeah, I never thought about it like that.
Yep.
Um, Along those lines, really excited to see that Vought spin-off series about superhero college kids, which is actually in production right now after a long development. Um, there's just so much to play in with this world, even if I might have fears about the main conflict growing stagnant. There's just so much, I think, going on in the world, and all the performances are really enjoyable. That I do hope they just kind of just run this out for a while, because it's just really fun to be with these characters.
Yeah, definitely. Just one aspect I wanted to touch on that I'm having a really tough time with pretty much every time they're on screen this season is the Aquaman
The
person.
Deep,
Yeah, the
Chase
deep.
Crawford.
Obviously, getting Chase Crawford back is nice. I think he's a talented actor, but his character obviously problematic from things from earlier seasons, the
Mhm.
sexual assault of Starlight in season 1. But him having to eat Timothy in episode 3 was literally, I literally had to skip through the scene, dude. Like, it was so hard to watch.
CG octopus.
Yes, and yeah, obviously I'm being a big baby with that, but it was just so heartbreaking to see him have to eat his friend. Um, yeah, just really, really devastating. I hope we get Timothy back in some way, but I highly doubt it. That
Mhm.
was a brutal scene.
Yeah. I'm curious to see where they take A Train, because A Train feels a bit stagnant, where it's like he medically like can't really be his old self in terms of like being the Flash.
Hmm.
And personally, culturally, he's basically called out by those who know him that it's like, you're not really putting on for the black community. You're just a self-centered person. So what's your deal, bro? And
Yeah,
that's kind of where we're left with. So TBD there, I suppose. Um, I think the one through line that I didn't really care for early on was like Frenchie's side plots, where he like gets up to like random mischief away from the rest of the boys. It's like, I feel like I don't necessarily need this.
yeah,
I don't mind Kimiko per se, but like when Frenchie's like off like with his other acquaintances and like getting roughed up by like European mobsters or something, it's like, what's the point of this? Like,
yeah. I agree. I don't know where that's going, but don't really want more of that. We'll see. Um, yeah, man, this show is great, and I hope people watch it. And if you like superheroes at all, I think it's worth the watch, at least for the thoughtfulness of it, because it definitely makes you consider things that you haven't before.